Coming up, the latest on several bills moving through the state legislature.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Kentucky lawmakers advanced a bill today that would strengthen an animal torture bill that was passed 16 years ago. House Bill 258 would add to the bill known as Romeo's Law that deals with tougher penalties for the torture of a dog or cat. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on what the bill would do.
Ethan the dog came to the House Judiciary Committee Wednesday as his owner pushed for passage for a bill named for him.
He was soon traded for drugs and thus began a 7 to 8 month, unbelievably hellish life he had to endure.
Callaway wants Ethan's Act passed to toughen animal torture laws to prevent the neglect and abuse leveled on him.
Ethan was intentionally restrained in a kennel that was way too small for him. Too small for him to stand or even move around. Because of not being able to move, Ethan developed pressure sores on his legs.
Wanton disregard has been added because these offenders know what the consequences of their actions are going to be, and they just display a lack of care.
This bill would add some provisions to Romeo's Law, which was passed 16 years ago. That all stemmed from a case out of Pulaski County where some people saw a dog being severely beaten. And they said that at that time there needed to be a changing some of those offenses from a misdemeanor to a felony. Representative Whitten says Romeo's Law was good, but more is needed.
It does not mention restraints, one of the key conditions under which a pet can be tortured when it cannot escape.
The bill passed with 16 yes votes, 1 voting no, and 1 passing. Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
The bill also would take into account owners' rights and hunters' concerns that were challenged in the past. A bill focused on religious freedom is moving forward in Frankfort, but it faces more debate from lawmakers. House Bill 47 passed in committee by a vote of 14-6. But some who voted to pass the bill in committee say some things need to change in the bill's language for it to be approved on the House floor. Supporters of House Bill 47 says more religious freedoms are needed, while opponents say if the bill passes, it would lead to confusion and multiple lawsuits. The bill now heads to the full House. People packed the Capitol Rotunda today to rally alongside the Fairness Campaign. They are celebrating 25 years of the Commonwealth's first fairness ordinances approved in 3 cities back in 1999. Now, as Samantha Valentino shows us, they say their work continues as they fight what they are calling the slate of hate.
What do you want? When do you want it? 13 anti-LGBTQ plus bills already. I'll get the veto pen ready again this year.
The Fairness Campaign says the proposed bills on the, quote, slate of hate includes anti-fairness, anti-DEI, and anti-drag bills. Serenity Johnson says the continued filing of these types of bills only further shows the importance of representing LGBTQ people in the Commonwealth.
We live in cities and the rural counties and the hollers of Kentucky. We're Kentuckians too, and I think it's important that people remember that.
Senator Karen Berg filed Senate Bill 238 just 1 day before the fairness rally here at the state capitol. She says the bill would undo much of last year's controversial Senate Bill 150.
Well, this bill is essentially my effort to be as understanding as possible to everybody's concerns.
If passed, it would require schools to provide all students with areas of individual privacy upon request when using restrooms, locker rooms, or changing rooms. It would also require schools to use a child's preferred pronouns with a note from the child's parent and a doctor diagnosing the child with gender dysphoria.
The school will do their best to accommodate. I even took the word require out and changed it to request, because I know this is difficult for some people to wrap their heads around.
If they come for any one of us, we'll make a circle of love for all to see.
In Frankfort, Samantha Valentino, WKYT.
Today was also Suicide Prevention Day at the state capitol. Governor Beshear also attended that awareness event and underscored the need for easy access to resources. The Kentucky chapter of the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention was also represented. They support bills proposed in the legislature that would help make resources available to military service members, veterans, and first responders.
Well, one more calm evening is on the way for now, but we are watching out for some changes as we go into your Thursday as more moisture is on the way. But right now, let's take a live look at the radar, and as you can see, we are dry, but notice those clouds continue to increase as that next weather system is looming as early as tomorrow. Because of an increase in those clouds, those temperatures are not as cold as we go into this evening. Most of us right now still in the 50s, down to 52 in Pikeville, 53 in Jackson, and 57 for Somerset, also in Irvin at this hour. And most of us wake up in the middle to upper 40s as you walk out the door on Thursday. So again, not as cold. Some pockets of 30s are possible as well in those cooler pockets as you walk out the door on Thursday. But the bigger story tomorrow, that moisture is set to increase. Also watching out for some gusty winds. We could see winds up to 30 miles per hour at times on your Thursday. Those temperatures top out in the upper 50s and lower 60s. But a cooler start to the weekend is on the way. Those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thanks. 2 Pulaski County men are sentenced in separate federal child pornography cases. 48-year-old Floyd Adams will spend 20 years in prison for receiving child porn. 41-year-old Jonathan Canada was sentenced to 28 years behind bars for the production of child pornography. You can find more about the investigations on WYMT.com. Police are still searching for a man reported missing in mid-December. State police say 56-year-old Richie Sloan was last seen walking near his home on Kentucky Highway 160 in Knott County. Police say foul play is not suspected, but they've not yet ruled it out. Trooper Matt Gayhart says police often have a routine in searching for folks.
Typically, we'll start with their last seen or with their home residence, and kind of expand outwards as the investigation goes, frequent known locations, interviewing people that they're known to speak with.
Gayhart says tips and leads in the case have been unsuccessful so far. Sloan is not considered by police to be dangerous. The Pike County Fiscal Court is revisiting its Opioid Abatement Settlement Committee. The county has more than $1.2 million in funding allocated by the national settlement and is expected to see around $4.3 million by 2038, based on estimates by the Kentucky Association of Counties. Judge Executive Ray Jones says now is the time to look closer at the criteria for the funding to decide how to best serve the mission of opioid abatement in the county.
We were told at one of the last conferences that some of the counties have spent some of the money and may not have done it in compliance with the statute. So I just want to make sure that this money's spent, that it's done legally.
The committee was formed after the first allocation came through in 2022 and will include the sheriff, jailer, representatives from state police, and officials who work in recovery facilities to get a more well-rounded idea of how to be most impactful. As we near the end of February, the May primary election continues to inch closer. The election date is May 21st, with the final day to register to vote being April 22nd. Perry County Clerk Wayne Napier says if you are unsure if you are registered or have not received a confirmation, it's important to double check.
They can go online, but it'd be easier to call our office, call or come in, either one. If they hadn't received and kind of wondering about it, they need to call in anyway, just to make sure that they go to the right precinct, something like that.
The online mail-in absentee request portal opens on April 6th. You can visit our website for more information on all the important dates prior to the May primary. Alabama's largest hospital is pausing in vitro fertilization treatments after the state Supreme Court ruled frozen embryos have the same rights as children. CBS's Wendy Gillette reports.
I'm angry, I'm sad, just a whole slew of things.
34-year-old Jasmine York is wondering what's next after her fertility doctor at the University of Alabama called to tell her the hospital is pausing all IVF treatments following a court decision.
I am scared, but I do have hope still that this can get turned around and things can be made right.
The all-Republican Alabama Supreme Court delivered the landmark ruling. It stems from a wrongful death lawsuit brought by patients whose frozen embryos were destroyed when they were accidentally dropped. The court ruled the embryos are people under the law and entitled to the same protections as children. In a statement to CBS News, the University of Alabama says it's saddened, but we must evaluate the potential that our patients and our physicians could be prosecuted criminally or face punitive damages for following the standard of care for IVF treatments. Fertility doctors predict many more patients will be affected.
It was shocking.
Reproductive endocrinologist Dr. Brett Davenport is concerned about the decision.
My mind is still wrapping around all of the implications of this.
Anti-abortion rights advocates say the ruling follows state law.
We can worry about the cost of a lot of things, but I think the more pressing issue will be a proper treatment and the relationship between those who believe in the sanctity of life at any stage of development and the need of medical science to address problems.
Alabama has one of the strictest abortion laws in the nation. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
The CDC says nearly 100,000 babies were born in the U.S. in 2021 using IVF. That's 2% of all births. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, one local sheriff is highlighting diversity in his department during Black History Month.
Plus, wet weather returns tomorrow. Your Thursday forecast after this break.